I was kind of heartbroken, started thinking about other things, went back to my hometown, which was Preston, Idaho, and told my dad I thought maybe I was now ready to go on a mission.
I said, a mission? I said, I don't figure I'm going on a mission. I'm going to play professional basketball. I don't want to go on a mission. And he said, well, the Lord wants you to.
I felt I was worthy. And so as I walked by the bishop, I said, Bishop, well, why didn't you ask me? And I walked away. Well, next week, guess who got an interview?
Countries all around the world now have become wonderful, but in '56, basketball was our game.
But I think there was a general feeling amongst the officialdom that it would help promote not only the basketball as a spectacle, but give them a guide for selection as far as the Australian team was concerned for 1956.
He said they were going to have a basketball team. He told me the other elders that would be playing, and one of the elders, of course, I came to Australia with, Loren Dunn.
It only took a couple of people with that kind of experience and then team them with guys like myself and others who had high school and junior college experience, and you could do pretty well at that time.
It's in 1891 at the YMCA training school in Springfield, Massachusetts, where James Naismith invents basketball. And basketball will become the great religious game throughout the world, the great game that everyone turns to proselytize, to find converts.
The game of basketball was invented as a way to attract young Christian men to wholesome recreational activities and to introduce them to Christian principles.
Right about the time that basketball started in the 1890s, the Mormon Church started playing basketball. And they played usually just among themselves, but in the 1920s in Salt Lake, they thought they would start a tournament, and that grew to an all-church tournament.
Moulding the YMCA's muscular Christianity concept into spiritualised recreation, basketball quickly grew in popularity within Mormon congregations. With their early adoption and all-church tournaments, thousands of young men were taught teamwork, cooperation, and sportsmanship.
Basketball was popular. People wanted to learn how to play. Mormon missionaries had this, especially American Mormon missionaries, had a skill that they could teach.
Leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Australia soon realised that the great popularity of basketball could be useful in their proselyting efforts. In 1938, Latter-day Saint Missionaries formed a competitive basketball team and went undefeated, winning the Victorian State Championships in Australia. They repeated as state champions in 1939 and 1940, but with the United States entering the war at the end of 1941, the Yankees were called home.
Basketball wasn't a very big sport in Melbourne at that time. In fact, I don't think I'd heard of it before the Missionaries started to play, because the Australian football was the sport you heard most about, and that was a man's game.
You weren't playing football, basketball was a sissy's game. So it's the development of something that actually, that just comes with time and learning.
This learning soon came in an exciting way. In 1954, the Harlem Globetrotters travelled through several Australian cities, showcasing their entertaining basketball skills. Suddenly, basketball became a sport worth watching. Since the missionaries were struggling to get into people's doors at the time, President Charles V. Lillenquist saw this as a unique opportunity.
He went to first Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, and Perth. And he said, if you'll put so much in the paper each week on the ball games, and then an article once a month in your paper about the church and what we're trying to do, he said, I'll bring the best basketball team you've ever seen. And Adelaide took him up on it.
He didn't know very much about basketball. And he said, we've got somebody coming who's better than the Globetrotters. You can imagine how I felt after all of that. He said, we'll give you any missionary you want, but organize a team there and establish a good reputation for the church.
Having recently been a part of the Brigham Young University NIT Championship basketball team, Elder Dunn was asked to organise this team of missionary basketball players.
You got better coverage, of course, if you won most of your games. Elder Dunn had to shift a few of the players around to make sure that we had a team that was very competitive and could compete and win.
He met us at the ship and he said to Elder Weitzel, you're going to Adelaide to play basketball as part of your missionary assignment. When you stop in Sydney, get a hold of Bob Steck, who's a missionary, and you'll travel together.
I met with President Lillenquist. He said they were forming a basketball team. I was delighted.
The basketball team basically was Loren as center, myself as a forward, Elder Steck and Elder Haynes as guards, and Elder Norm Weitzel.
In Adelaide, the Latvian and Lithuanian teams had been dominant, but with the arrival of the Mormons, a new level of competition was achieved. This team from America called themselves the Mormon Yankees. That year, the Mormons regained dominance at the South Australian state competition.
Well, I think that by the Mormons coming in the competition, that helped everybody who took notice.
Big George was about as big and heavy and good shot, right? He was center for their team. And he and Loren went butt to butt sort of thing. And we respected each other because they had to. It was just so much fun.
Whether you were Italian Catholics who were new at that point, or you were the Latter-day Saints coming in, to offer sport would be to do precisely the same thing as everybody else was doing, and not in a copycat way, but that was simply a very important way of engaging with the community.
During this time, President McKay came and toured the mission as president of the church. When he got into Adelaide, he was met with a press conference. One of the people in the press conference was praising this group of boys who were playing basketball. President McKay didn't know anything about it, and so they answered what questions he could. After it was over, President Lillenquist said, it's been a good program, but it's too bad we're going to have to end it. We don't get enough missionaries who can play basketball. And President McKay said, you keep the program going. We'll see that the basketball players come. And for years after that, some of the most talented basketball players who went on missions were assigned to Australia because of that program.
Once they secured the Senior Men's Basketball Championship in South Australia, the Mormon Yankees began to enjoy success in other ways.
They wanted us to play an exhibition game before each tennis match with the leading professional tennis players in the world, Pancho Gonzalez, Pancho Segura, and Sedgman and McGregor. We couldn't believe it. But that had more impact for the Mormon Yankees in the church than any one single thing that we did when we were in Australia. The crowds were huge. It was doing so well that all of the other states formed a Mormon Yankee basketball team.
Since the Mormon teams had more experienced players than other state teams, as the state championships rolled around in 1955, it was decided that no team could have more than 3 Mormon Yankees in their side. Several Mormon Yankees players then joined each of the other state teams.
1955 really was a turning point as I saw it. For the first time in Australian basketball history, Mormon missionary members were actually members of a state team.
I don't think it ever happened before or after. But as far as our state team was concerned, we had Elder Dunn, and we had Elder North and Elder Day.
And so not only playing against them, had the opportunity to play with them. So it's a great learning curve for us in those circumstances.
And it was interesting when we went to the National Basketball Championships. Now we're all playing against each other.
The result was the proselytizing, the awareness, not surprising that the church expanded.
It was to teach the gospel. And so that was made very clear to all of us. And we took that very seriously.
Near the end of 1955, a new mission president took over the responsibility for Mormon missionaries in South Australia. Once that basketball season ended, President Thomas S. Bingham discontinued missionary participation in competitive basketball with the understanding that it was a distraction from their primary purpose of missionary work.
Basketball was not going to be a priority. In other words, we weren't going to press sports we wanted the missionaries to do missionary work.
Any person that serves a mission completely understands that they are stepping aside from their normal life, whether it be basketball or work or college or any type of industry that they could possibly be in, and they're putting that aside, and they're focusing 100% on spiritual matters, 100% on sharing the message of Jesus Christ.
What President Bingham had not anticipated was the notoriety the Mormon Yankees had acquired. With the 1956 Melbourne Olympic Games just a few months away and the Aussies fielding their very first Olympic basketball team, the newly appointed Olympic basketball coach approached President Bingham with a proposition.
Ken Watson asked him if they could have a team of Mormon Yankees to just give some experience and maybe even instruct the local athletes with regards to basketball.
They would appreciate the opportunity to have some competition with some players who maybe had some talent and some experience.
We'll make sure that you get publicity, and we will not force you to do anything that you don't want to do that's counter to what the missionaries are doing.
It would be a great proselyting tool for the church, a benefit to the church, and that he saw that it would be a great benefit to them when they were getting ready for the Olympic Games.
16 or so players were selected to go through various selection games to be picked for the Olympic team. And we played the Mormon Yankees in Melbourne.
Delisle Condie was the captain coach of the Mormon Yankees team in 1956. He also had an influence on the opposition teams, and I think one in particular, Ken Watson. He spent a lot of time with Delisle Condie asking about the coaching methods. He was very cooperative and supportive in the way that he discussed those matters with Ken, and Ken then tried to implement those methods into our team.
As we were guarding them, if they did something that we thought that could be improved, we would say to them, you know, look, when you get the ball, fake to the right and go to the left, or, you know, and so we were kind of, because we played them enough times that we really kind of coached them as we went along.
As the international basketball teams began arriving in Melbourne prior to the Olympic Games, they too wanted to prepare for games through practice matches against good competition. A pre-Olympic exhibition tournament was organised where as many of the teams as possible could play these Mormon Yankees, as well as other local teams. Some of these exhibition games were broadcast across Australia on national television.
You kind of wonder, just thought, man, these are Olympic teams. Can we be in the same class with them? Can we give them the competition they need, you know? And then as we got playing, then we realized that, you know, they're very good, but we're not too bad either, and we can give them a run for their money and warm them up like they wanted to be.
Don Hall, who played for Utah State University, was a forward. Elder Condie was a starter for the University of Utah. Elder Kimball was a star with Provo High School. Elder Garn was a star in Sugar City, Idaho.
We played Chile. We played the Philippines.
We played against the Russians. We played against Brazil. We played against Formosa. I remember we played against France, which was kind of a disputed game.
Played them twice, beat them once, and they contested that even, but we did beat them.
We won by 2 points, and there was just pandemonium in the building. Everyone cheered because the Mormon Yankees had won. And those who were cheering weren't all church members by any means, because the church was very sparse at that time.
When we appeared on television like 2 days before the Olympics began, and here a bunch of Mormons were all over the country playing this basketball. And it happened to be something that worked favorably for us and got the Australians kind of behind us.
For months after, they would say, "Oh, you're one of those Yanks. We seen you on the telly. My, you're a big bloke."
Americans playing, they attracted people to the games, and that in turn popularised the sport. And the way I view it, it was like providing the foundation of awareness of the sport and awareness of the abilities of those players that played. So when they were playing to win pre-Olympic exhibition matches, the people here came to understand they were watching something special.
The members there were so glad that we were playing, and everybody was it just boosted everybody's spirits that we would win and play in those games.
I yelled. I didn't just, and when the boys were going for a basket, I'd say, "Box it." Blue, white, Mormon Yankees, fight, fight. Like that.
It was a confidence builder. I think they realized that they didn't have to walk around with their heads down. I think they could stand tall and be proud of being members of the church.
They gave us an identity. They gave us a purpose to be Latter-day Saints at school, to be proud of who we were.
Although the Mormon Yankee team rosters often fluctuated with missionaries arriving from or departing to America, their good name and notoriety continued to increase. In 1957, the University of Melbourne requested that a Mormon Yankee player coach their university basketball team.
It was a great experience. It was a lot of fun, and they treated me very well, and we'd go out and practice with them, and then they had games, at least one game during the week. So I got a double dose of basketball. I got to play with the Mormon Yankees, and I got to play with or practice and play with the kids at the university.
He was a guy I looked up to tremendously. He was so clean cut, he was so good at his basketball moves, but he was just an exemplary human being. He said, "Now, look, playing basketball is one thing, but how you live your life is another. And I'm just saying to you guys, if you're smoking, if you're drinking, if you're wasting your bodies, you're wasting your lives."
The missionary work of the Mormon Yankees was going well by this time, and a second mission had been added in New South Wales, presided over by President Zelf Erickson.
I said to him at that time, "President Erickson, are you willing to explore taking this Mormon Yankee thing to even greater heights to assist us in proselyting?" And he said, "Absolutely, what do you have in mind?" And I said, "I think we ought to go to a couple of cities that surround here where we've got missionaries or where we want to put missionaries, and we ought to have the Mormon Yankees play their town team and leave these missionaries or introduce these missionaries. And I think we can generate a lot of goodwill off of the goodwill that the Mormon Yankees have."
President Erickson liked the basketball idea, and the missionaries organised several tours to various cities in Australia's eastern states during 1959 and 1960. The Mormon Yankees travelled together to these cities, played basketball against their finest players, and would often teach basketball skills to those interested.
We had to have sponsors help us pay for this trip, or the mission would have never let us do it. And I met with Qantas, the airline company. They helped fund the program.
We asked Hardy Rubber Company for 3 pairs of shoes for each player. We asked another company for basketballs, 4 new basketballs.
I arranged with Volkswagen of Australasia, and they furnished us a free, brand new, current 1959 Volkswagen.
And also, they came in and said, "We'll not only provide you the commie van, we'll provide the publicity in each town. That you come, we'll advertise it in the papers."
They were excited to have us come to their towns, because every Volkswagen dealer in every town that we went to would arrange with the local mayor, the local news, the local radio stations, and they would greet us and meet us on the town hall steps.
We gave away over 6,000 printed programs to fans that attended the games. And we also gave away 188 books of Mormon.
There would be pictures and there would be interviews about what the Mormon church was all about. And that's what we were trying to do, was spread the story about Mormonism and get people interested any way we could in investigating the church and having a good feeling about the church.
The only thing to slow the Mormon Yankees during these tours were the constant blowouts their van suffered as they drove thousands of miles across rough Australian roads. Once at the venues, however, they played to packed houses and established attendance and scoring records in more than 30 cities. The Mormon Yankees complemented their outstanding basketball skills with an entertaining intermission. After an introduction to their faith, crowds usually enjoyed a semi-professional trumpeter, a comical gymnast, or even a skilled impersonator.
Ron Bauck was as crazy as you could be in terms of funny, a character. He had gyrations.
He would wear a white tracksuit and entertain the crowd and cheer on the players doing flip-flops up and down the court. Now, we'd never seen this sort of thing in Sydney, and it really got the crowd going.
I would stun the crowd by running on all fours, the length of the floor, all the way around the floor, looking up at the basket and panting like a dog. They were absolutely flabbergasted.
He'd run and climb up like a monkey and swing back and forth, you know. I mean, he just was a character.
We had the benefit of a very talented young man named Roger Bound. He could be an act in Las Vegas or on any stage anywhere.
Hello, Dean. What are you doing? Now, Jerry, calm down. We're in front of people here, and we want to take it easy. We want to take it easy. Jerry, what's the matter with your hand? Well, I don't know. I was in the kitchen, and a lady slapped me, and in the wind it really goes.
I think his best was Magoo. He did Elvis Presley. Several other prominent people at the time.
We, the British people, shall never surrender. I say to you, people of America, put some money in the pot, boys.
He could entertain people for a half hour and just have them laughing the whole time. He was just full of a lot of nonsense.
My name is Peter Lorre. I'm a murderer in the picture shows. I used to get my girl in front of me, get some gasoline and pour it over her head, and light the match to the gas, and I would call her my old flame.
The Mormon Yankees would use every opportunity not only to teach basketball skills, but to share other aspects of their life that some might choose to emulate.
We would always hold clinics before the game, and we would have hundreds of kids, girls and boys, and we would just go through basic fundamentals of basketball.
Every Saturday morning there was a couple of hours of that, and lots of young men particularly, probably 8 to 14 age range.
We had a chance to talk with a lot of people about gospel principles, but they were typically in response to their questions. Why don't you guys drink? How come you don't smoke?
The teenage boys especially, we saw a lot of them stop smoking. And we would see that happen almost immediately.
Every player had to receive a signed autographed Book of Mormon from us.
We were presenting this Book of Mormon here, which I still have, and I could say honestly, it was the breakdown of meeting the missionaries and playing basketball that changed my whole life.
While working to break down religious prejudices, these outstanding young giants among men made an unmistakable impact both on and off the court, upon Australia, upon the promotion of a sport, and upon the development of their faith.
When you're looking at role models and examples, what the Mormons did for us at that time was very significant.
I guess I've got the Mormon Yankees to thank for the impact they made on my life, both religiously and also with my love for the sport of basketball, which has been part of my life, a big part of my life, since I was 15 years old, and I'm so grateful for their influence and them teaching me how to play.
I remember people coming to me and saying, the Mormons came to my place today. Gee, they're nice guys, you know, but they knew them through the basketball.
I've got nothing but respect for the way they played, for the way they behaved, for the way they carried themselves. And it was a pity that there weren't more coming out of a higher caliber that might have perhaps given our country a shot in the arm much earlier.
It was the Mormons, as far as I was concerned, in my era, that came out and showed us how it was done and how to play the game.
We had developed a relationship with people on a common ground, being sport and basketball. It engendered a respect factor between ourselves, so that when in later times the Mormon missionaries used to knock on our door to have a talk to us about their religion, the door was always open.
It wasn't just a fling. It wasn't just a use of a gimmick. It was genuinely used to bring good publicity to the church and to introduce individuals to the gospel of Jesus Christ. The fruits from that experience to those who are involved, like myself, are just as great. Basketball was only one of many tools that we had, but it was an important tool, and one I was awfully grateful to participate with.
It was such a privilege to be associated with men of that great character. They were veritable giants, every one of them.